It's hard to even know where to start because everything's a blur of anger, betrayal, and this sick feeling that I've been sucker punched right in the gut. My name's Mark, and I never thought I'd be sitting here, typing out this story for a relationship advice subreddit, but I guess I need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind. It all started about 2 months ago. I just lost my job, a pretty decent one that I'd worked at for years. Nothing dramatic, just a bad round of layoffs. I remember the day I got the call. I could practically feel the floor shift beneath my feet. My stomach turned and that sick feeling sank in deep. It was like everything I'd built, everything I'd planned was suddenly gone. I stayed in bed that day, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the blow, feeling that tight knot of shame twist with every passing hour. My wife, Lisa, she was supportive, at least she pretended to be. She stayed quiet, held my hand a little, told me she believed I'd get through it. She'd always been good at keeping up appearances, but I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than usual during those days. She'd sneak glances at it when she thought I wasn't looking, and her eyes darted nervously around the room. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was just worried about me. Still, that nagging sense of unease clawed at me. Then I saw them. It was late one night. Around 11 p.m. I was in the living room trying to distract myself with some old movies. I just finished a beer, feeling a little numb when I saw her. Lisa was sneaking out of the bedroom, clutching her phone. She moved like a cat, quiet and careful, almost too careful. That's when I followed her out of curiosity but mostly instinct. I mean, I'd been enough times already. I didn't want to sit around waiting for the next punch. She tiptoed into the guest room, her phone pressed to her ear. I crept closer, eyes glued to the crack under the door. The voices on the other end sounded muffled, but I caught snippets, her laughter, a low chuckle, a few hushed words. My stomach dropped. I knew that voice. It was faint but unmistakable. It was my brother Tom, my own flesh and blood. I froze there, heart pounding so loud I thought I'd faint. My hands felt clammy, palms slick with sweat. I stared at the door handle, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? Were they sneaking around before? Had I missed the signs? My fist clenched, trembling so much I thought I'd punch through the wood. I didn't want to believe it, not really. But the evidence was right there in my face. When Lisa finally came out, she looked over her shoulder like she was trying to make sure no one saw her. She hurried back into the bedroom and I slipped away, my head spinning. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, feeling numb but also furious. Betrayal like this doesn't just hurt. It rips your guts out and leaves you bleeding on the floor. The next morning, I woke up with a raging ache in my jaw, clenching my teeth so hard I thought my head would crack. I looked at her, still half asleep, and saw that falsely innocent face. She looked so calm, so unaffected, like she just had a nice chat with her best friend. Meanwhile, my mind replayed everything I'd seen. The sneaking, the quiet phone calls, the way her eyes flicked when she thought I wasn't watching. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. That would be playing into her hands. I needed to do this carefully. I sat there trying to think what to say, what to do. But all I could feel was the boiling rage under my skin, the kind that makes your palms sweat and your vision blur. I told her I needed to talk, and her smile was fake, kind of knowing. "I know," I finally said, voice shaking. "I saw him. You've been cheating on me, haven't you?" She froze, then smirked like it was some game. "You're overreacting, Mark. It's not what you think." I clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. "Don't lie, I saw you." I heard his voice. "How long has this been going on?" She shrugged, still trying to act nonchalant. "It's just a little affair. It doesn't mean anything." That's when I realized I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything I'd been through. The betrayal cut so deep it felt like I'd been stabbed. The way she was acting like she hadn't done anything wrong, like I was the one overreacting, pushed me over the edge. I had to come up with a plan, and fast, because I wasn't about to let this slide. Not without some kind of reckoning. I spent that whole day trying to keep my cool while everything inside me was boiling over. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, how easily she lied, how they acted like it was just some casual thing. I knew I needed a plan, something that would hit her where it hurt but also bring everything out in the open. Because I wasn't just going to confront her and walk away. No, I wanted to make her feel what I was feeling. 1,000 times worse. That night, I started gathering evidence. I've always been the kind of guy who doesn't trust easily, so I knew I had to cover my bases. I bought a cheap voice recorder and some small cameras. Nothing obvious, just enough to catch whatever was going on if she slipped up again. I hid one camera in the living room, pointed at the door to her closet. That's where she'd go when she was sneaking around. I also kept the recorder in my pocket, ready to catch any more lies. The next few days felt like walking on a razor's edge. Every time she left the house or went into that room, my stomach clenched like a fist. I'd keep my eyes peeled, pretending everything was normal, but my mind was racing. I was already imagining her reactions when I played the recordings back, the look on her face when she realized she'd been caught. Then finally, I got my chance. One evening she went out again, supposedly to run errands, but I knew better. I waited until I heard her door close, then I started the recorder. I quietly slipped into the guest room, set up the camera, and sat on the bed, waiting. I was tense, muscles tight, feeling every nerve on edge. I could hear her footsteps from the hallway, her keys jangling, and then the door shut behind her. My stomach sank when I heard her voice on the recording, soft but unmistakable. She was whispering to Tom, talking about meeting up, how they'd sneak away for a weekend, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I played it over and over, feeling sick every time the words sank in. It was real, all of it. They'd been lying to my face, pretending everything was fine while they were planning their betrayal. I sat there, replaying the recordings, my fists clenched so tightly I thought they'd bleed. I knew then that I had enough to destroy her with. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about making her regret ever crossing me. I realized I had to take control completely. I couldn't just confront her and hope for the best. No, I had to escalate. I had to do something she'd never see coming. The next step was setting up the final piece. I wanted her to see everything, really see the proof, the evidence of her lies and betrayal. I planned to play her the recordings, show her I had everything on tape. But I also wanted her to know I wasn't just some naive fool who got. I was clever, calculating, ready to fight fire with fire. That night I stayed up late preparing everything. I knew she'd come home the next day and I'd be ready. I'd confront her with the truth, but in a way that she couldn't deny. It was time she saw what was coming, because I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without consequences. I felt a strange mix of calm and rage. My palms sweaty, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I could almost taste the bitterness in my throat. I had no idea what her reaction would be: anger, denial, guilt. But I knew one thing: I was done playing nice. She had crossed every line, and I was preparing to make her regret it for the rest of her life. The day she was supposed to come home, I could feel the tension thickening in the air. My stomach was a knot everyone would mistake for nerves, but I knew better. This was about control. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some doormat that she could walk all over. I'd spent days planning every detail, every word, every move. It was time for her to face the music. She called a few hours earlier, sounding oddly cheerful. "I'll be home around 6, she said, her voice light, almost casual. "Dinner in the oven, just so you know." I heard the slight flick of her wrist, like she was trying to seem normal, like she didn't have a secret. I kept calm, even though my mind was racing with possibilities. When she finally pulled into the driveway, I was already waiting by the door. I didn't say a word as she stepped out of her car, just looked her over. Her eyes flicked nervously, maybe sensing something was off, but she kept her composure. She was good at that. Too good. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice cracked just a little. "Hi," I muttered, stepping aside to let her in. "We need to talk." My voice was even controlled, but inside I was a storm waiting to break loose. She looked at me, then down at her hands. "What's wrong?" I pulled out the flash drive I'd hidden in my pocket. It was small but packed with enough evidence to blow everything apart. "Here," I said quietly. "This is what I've been recording. All your little conversations, your plans, everything." Her face went pale, her eyes darted to the drive. "You're kidding, right?" "Nope," I said, voice steady. "This is all the proof I need. I've been waiting for the right moment to show you, and I think that moment is right now." She stepped back, her hands raising in a defensive gesture. "You're crazy, Mark. This isn't fair." "Oh, I think it's fair," I shot back. You've been hiding this from me, lying, cheating. And Tom, your own brother, how could you?" She looked away, then her shoulders sagged like she was giving up, like she realized I had her dead to rights. "You don't understand." "No," I interrupted sharply. "You don't get to explain. You already told me what I needed to know about the affair, about how you think you can just cheat and lie and I'll never find out. Well, I did, and I'm done. You want to keep pretending everything's fine, go ahead. But I want out, Lisa. And I want everyone to know what kind of person you really are." Her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "You're overreacting. Just give me a chance to explain." I shook my head, feeling the adrenaline flood my veins. "No, you had your chance. This is over. I'm done pretending. You want to keep lying, keep hiding, fine, but I'm done being your fool." That's when I handed her the drive. "Here, watch this, and then pack your things. You're leaving tonight." She took it slowly, her fingers trembling, her lips pressed into a thin line, eyes flickering with a mixture of guilt and defiance. "You really want to do this?" "Yep," I said, voice cold. "Because I'm tired of being the fool." As she turned away, clutching the drive, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I finally had control back. It was only the beginning, but I knew I had her now, and she wasn't getting out of this without consequences. Later that night, I sat alone in the living room, playing the recordings for the first time. Hearing her voice, her words, was like a punch to the stomach. Every lie, every betrayal replayed in my mind. My hands clenched into fists. I'd never felt so angry, so betrayed in my life. But I also knew I had to be smarter, because this wasn't just about hurting her. It was about making sure she understood she couldn't mess with me and get away with it. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. The next morning, I woke up with a strange clarity, the kind that only comes when you've finally gotten all the pieces in place. Last night's confrontation was just the beginning. Now I had to execute my plan. I knew Lisa was going to be shocked, probably devastated or furious. Maybe she'd try to deny it, cry, or even beg, but I wasn't in a forgiving mood. I had spent days building up to this, and I wasn't about to back down now. Before she woke up, I made sure everything was ready. I packed a small bag, just in case I needed to leave quickly. I wanted her to see I was serious about ending this, about making her face what she'd done. Then I placed her phone on the kitchen table, completely unlocked. I also put the drive I recorded everything on right next to it, so she'd find it first thing. When she stirred, I was already sitting on the couch, staring at the door. She looked groggy, still half asleep, rubbing her eyes. She yawned and stretched, then sat up and looked around. "Morning," she mumbled. I nodded. "Morning, we need to talk, and I want you to see everything I have." Her face flickered with confusion, then suspicion. "What are you talking about?" I gestured to the phone and the drive. "I've been recording you, Lisa. All those late-night calls, your plans with Tom, everything. I want you to see it for yourself." She hesitated, then slowly reached for her phone. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it, then noticed the drive. Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Oh, I'm dead serious," I said, voice firm. "Go ahead, watch the recordings, read the messages, whatever you need to do to understand what you've been doing behind my back." Her hands shook as she pressed play on the videos she'd stored, things she'd never intended for me to see. Her face twisted with shock, then guilt, then outright panic. She kept stopping and rewinding, trying to deny what she was hearing or seeing, but it was useless. The evidence was irrefutable. As she watched, I sat back, feeling a strange mixture of triumph and emptiness, because I knew this was the point of no return. Once she saw the truth, there was no pretending everything was still okay. No more lies, and I was done playing nice. Finally, she looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand." "Stop," I cut her off cold. "I understand perfectly. You betrayed me with my own brother, and I don't think I can ever trust you again. That's why I'm leaving, tonight." Her voice cracked. "Please wait. We can fix this." I didn't mean for it to get so out of hand. "That's bullshit," I snapped. "You knew exactly what you were doing, and I want you out, now." She stumbled to her feet, clutching the drive to her chest like it was her last lifeline. "Where am I supposed to go?" I stood up, feeling the last of my patience slip away. "That's your problem now. You want to keep lying, keep pretending you're innocent. Go ahead, I don't care. Just know that I'm done. Done with the betrayal, done with the lies. And I'm not coming back. I grabbed my bag, heading toward the door, but I paused and looked back. I want the keys to the house. I'll be changing the locks today, and I want you to leave by tonight. Don't bother calling me. I don't want to hear from you again. Her face crumpled, but she nodded silently. I could see she knew she'd lost everything: her marriage, her brother's loyalty, maybe even her self-respect. I left her standing there, clutching her phone and that damn drive, feeling every inch the victim of her own choices. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of her betrayal was finally lifted, but I also knew that I'd just begun a different kind of fight. Revenge wasn't just about getting her out of my life. It was about making sure she'd regret ever crossing me, and I was prepared to make sure she did. That evening, I went straight to the locksmith. While I waited, I could feel the adrenaline prickling at my skin, like I was a predator closing in on its prey. This wasn't just about locking her out. It was symbolic. It was putting a final stamp on everything she had shattered. My mind kept replaying her face that morning, her tears, her trembling hands, and I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. The locksmith arrived, and I handed him the keys to the house. "Change the locks completely," I told him, "and make sure no copies are left behind." Watching him work, I felt the cold resolve grow stronger. I was done with her lies, done with her betrayal. This was my way of reclaiming some sense of control. While he was working, I sat in my car, staring at the house through the window. It looked so normal on the surface, but I knew what had been hiding beneath. I kept thinking about her lying there, helpless, clutching that drive. My fists clenched again, feeling the familiar rush of anger. It was a brutal feeling, but I needed it. If I didn't channel this rage into something concrete, I would drown in it. By the time the locksmith finished, I handed him the payment and got in my car. No turning back now. I drove to a nearby where I knew I wouldn't be disturbed. Sitting there with my coffee, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I didn't feel victorious exactly, but I felt something. Close, like I'd taken back a piece of myself that I'd lost during her months of lies. I pulled out my phone and dialed a close friend. "I did it," I said simply. "She's out of the house and I changed the locks. She's got nothing now." My voice was rough, tired, but steady. "Good," my friend replied. "That's what you needed. Now you just focus on yourself, man. You don't need her dragging you down." I nodded, feeling a flicker of relief but also a gnawing sense of emptiness. I'd cut her out, sure, but part of me still wondered if I'd done enough. Was I just punishing her, or was I also punishing myself? That question lingered, and I knew that the real work was only beginning. In the coming days, I started to rebuild myself. I blocked her number, deleted her from social media. I even started going to therapy, something I'd avoided before but now felt necessary. Every time I saw her face in my mind, I clenched my fists and reminded myself I'd done the right thing. I felt lighter, more in control. But every now and then, a shadow of doubt or regret crept in, and I had to fight it off. One thing was clear: I was never going to trust her again, not fully. She crossed a line I never thought she would. And now I was forging a new path, one without her lies clouding my future. I told myself I'd move on, that I'd find someone who wouldn't betray me like this. But I also knew that leaving her wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about reclaiming my self-respect, my dignity. This betrayal shattered a lot of illusions I had about her and about myself. I had trusted her blindly, but I learned the hard way that sometimes love isn't enough to keep you safe from deception. So here I am, sitting in my apartment, reflecting on what just happened. It's raw, it's painful, but it's also necessary. I'll never forget this lesson. Never ignore the signs. Never let someone betray you and get away with it. Because the truth always finds a way out, and when it does, you better be prepared to face it head on. The days after she left have been a whirlwind of cleanup and reflection. I handed over the keys and made sure the locks were changed, knowing I'd never see her again inside my house. That old space, once filled with memories and trust, now feels hollow, like the walls are mourning what used to be. Every time I see her face in my mind, I remember the betrayal, the sneaking, the lies, the way she looked that morning, so helpless and guilty. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I got here. How I went from feeling like the luckiest guy in the world to drowning in this mess of lies. But honestly, I've realized it's not just about her cheating. It's about feeling betrayed by someone I loved, someone I thought knew me. I trusted her with everything, and she threw it all away for some fleeting thrill with my brother. That kind of betrayal cuts deeper than I ever thought possible. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. I knew I had to take control to show her she couldn't just walk over me and get away with it. Watching her face when she saw the evidence, hearing her cry, feeling her regret, those were small victories. It's strange how revenge isn't just about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming yourself, about reminding yourself that you're worth respect. I've also started rebuilding my life. I found a new job, one that I'm excited about, and I've been reconnecting with friends I'd let slip away during the chaos. It's not easy, but every little step forward feels like a win. I keep telling myself that I deserve better, that I don't have to live in this shadow of betrayal. And I won't. I've learned a lot from this experience, some harsh lessons, sure, but lessons that will keep me cautious, wiser. I've become more aware of the signs, more careful with who I trust. That's the part that hurts most, realizing I was blind to what was happening right under my nose. Looking back, I see the cracks that I ignored, her nervous glances, the late-night phone calls, the way she always seemed a little too eager to hide her phone. I was so caught up in losing my job that I think I missed the subtle clues. But now I see them clearly. I see how I let myself be blind, how I wanted to believe in her so badly I ignored what was right in front of me. Now I'm finally able to breathe without this heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I still feel the sting of betrayal, sure, but I also feel a strange sense of empowerment. I took back control. I made her face the consequences of her actions. I ended the chapter on my terms, not hers. So here's what I want anyone reading this to know. Trust your gut. Pay attention to the signs. Don't ignore the red flags just because you want to believe the best. And most importantly, never let someone betray you and walk away without consequences. Because if you do, you're just giving them permission to keep hurting you. Take your power back, stand tall, and remember your worth isn't measured by someone else's loyalty or lies. I'm moving on now. Not because I forget what happened, but because I refuse to let it define me. I've closed that door. It's time to walk forward, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the future holds.